Hello there, and welcome to the Gloria Feldt Show. I'm Gloria, and I thank you for joining me today. I'm the author of No Excuses, 9 Ways Women Can Change How We Think About Power, and I'm here to tell you I think this is an amazing moment for women. But I wonder, do you agree with that? Do you think women realize just what a moment it is? Well, today we're going to talk with 5 people who are helping to make it such a great time for women in work, politics, and personal relationships. Stick around and you'll hear exciting news and get tips you can use to lead your unlimited life. Well, the good news is women earn 60% of college degrees now. This year, we became 50% of the workplace. Studies by McKinsey and others find that companies with the most women on their senior management teams and boards actually have a higher return on investment. But women hold only 18% of those top positions. In politics, women are 51% of the population, 54% of voters. When they run, they can raise money as well as men, and they're actually more trusted by voters. But women are only 17% of Congress and under 1/4 of state legislatures. What the heck is going on? At the rate we're going, it'll take 70 years for women to reach parity, and that is barring further setbacks. Or by one calculation we'll hear about, it might take as much as 500 years. Well, yeah, we have seen a first woman almost everything. We've changed the laws, we've opened the doors. The problem is not enough women are walking through them. Now, I'm not inclined to blame. I don't want to do that. But I do want to inspire women. Because the fact is, you can't win if you don't run. You can't get into the executive suite if you don't have the intention to do it and let them know you want it. My friend Katie Orenstein, founder of the Op-Ed Project, did a little research when she heard women complaining that we got only 15% of the op-ed columns in major newspapers. Well, you know what she found out? Women submitted only 15%. You can't get published if you don't submit your op-ed, and also be willing to get rejected, which is actually what happens to both men and women most of the time. There are many, many reasons for these disparities, but frankly, there are no excuses anymore. And that's why I am so jazzed today to be able to bring you Jennifer Lawless, director of American University's Women in Politics Institute and author of It Takes a Candidate, and in fact, it still takes a candidate, her updated version of that just out last year. Tiffany Dufu, president of the White House Project. Jory Desjardins, co-founder of Blog Her, the largest aggregation of women bloggers anywhere, along with Veronica Areola, founder of the fabulous Viva la Feminista blog, and Victoria Pinchon, lawyer turned mediator and author of A is for A-Hole, the grown-ups ABCs of conflict resolution. So you're about to meet some amazing women, and they've got lots to tell you. And I'm pleased to welcome first Jennifer Lawless and Tiffany Dufu. Jennifer Lawless, as I said, is director of American University's Women in Politics Institute and author of what has become the sort of Bible for anyone who's doing research into why women do or don't run for office. It Takes a Candidate, and It Still Takes a Candidate, the updated version of that. And Tiffany Dufu, who is the new president of the White House Project, which trains and recruits and trains women to run for office and has done an amazing job of moving women into thinking about that kind of leadership. So welcome, Jennifer and Tiffany, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Jennifer, if I could start with you, one of the things that you say in It Takes a Candidate is that women have less political ambition than men. And you really unpack that to explain different reasons why women may be less likely to run for office. Do you really think women have less ambition than men, or is it something else? Say a little more about that, if you will.
Well, what we did in the study was survey and interview 4,000 women and men who are in the professions that tend to lead to political careers. And we asked them if they had ever considered running for office, if they had ever actually run, and what their attitudes toward politics were. And we found that women were roughly 1/3 less likely than men ever to have the notion of a candidacy even appear on their radar screens. So that's how we're defining political ambition, interest in running for office. And we tracked this ambition and tried to understand why it was that women expressed less interest. And we came up with four, I think, very intuitive reasons. The first is that women still shoulder the overwhelming majority of family responsibilities. They're 10 times more likely than their similarly situated male counterparts to still be responsible for the majority of the household tasks and childcare. Second, women and men with the exact same resumes don't consider themselves equally qualified. Whereas the majority of men think that they're qualified to run for office, the majority of women don't. Moreover, women's self-doubts hold them back. Women who don't think they're qualified don't think about running for office. Men who don't think they're qualified still do. And women are also less likely than men to be recruited to run for office. They're less likely to receive the suggestion to run from a political activist, party leader, or elected official, but also from a family member, friend, or colleague. And then finally, women are less likely than men to express interest in running for office in the future, in large part for the same reasons. So it's not necessarily that women are inherently less ambitious. It's that given the way our social structures are situated and given the way the political arena works, it's just not something that's feasible for many women.
Well, I have to wonder whether it's perhaps a different kind of ambition or what I might call intention of being able to see oneself in that role from a very, very early point in life and thinking about it. And Tiffany, if I can move this to you for a moment, 2010, we saw many of the so-called Mama Grizzlies running who had lots of children and didn't seem to think that was an impediment. 2010 brought a very different kind of political woman to the fore. Can you talk a little bit about that change and what that's doing to our ideas about women running for office?
Absolutely. Well, if there's one thing that it's doing, it's helping a lot of the women, particularly the ones that we're reaching out to, understand that anybody can run for office, which is always a very positive thing. You can't be what you can't see. I think the whole issue of children certainly is an impediment. A lot of the women that the White House Project is trying to engage and train are under 35, so many of them don't have children, or many of them, if they're like me, I have 2 small children and run this organization and do this work, but also I'm part of a generation that has been able to negotiate differently with partners and also to be very clear with our purpose and to construct lives that allow us to really fuel our ambition. And so I think that it presented actually a huge opportunity for people to see, wow, if she could do it, then certainly I might be able to do it as well.
But let me press a little further on part of that question, Tiffany. Part of what we've seen in terms of different kinds of women running for office is different ideologies and different agendas. And in the past, it's been mainly progressive women who have started these organizations that help women run for office. And in fact, whether they've been Republicans or Democrats, they've tended to be more progressive. Is it time for groups like the White House Project to come out of the closet and say, whoa, we care as much about what this woman believes about whether to advance women in this world as we care about the gender of the candidate?
I think it's absolutely time for those kinds of organizations to come out of the closet. I would come out of the closet a different way, though, Gloria. I would do it by emphasizing what it is we are all here to do. The White House Project was founded on this notion that by accelerating women's leadership and by inspiring women to advance their leadership and getting more women into positions of power, we could actually create social change, that we could move the needle forward. Advancing women's leadership, getting women into office, is only a means to that end. And I think that it's exactly what I've heard you say before, that we need to really focus on agenda rather than gender, that's going to move that needle forward and really focus on our values, what it is, what kind of change do we want to create in the world, and who can do that.
Well, Jennifer, you did that. You put yourself forward. You did run for office. Why don't you tell us about that experience and why you decided to take that step?
I did. I ran in 2006 in the Democratic primary in Rhode Island's 2nd Congressional District. It's a very Democratic, very progressive district. There was not even a Republican running in the general election. And I ran because I had just finished writing the first edition of the book. I was very cognizant of all of the limitations that women often thought of when they thought about running for office themselves. And I was in a district with an incumbent who I believed was terrible on women's issues. He had voted 27 times against a woman's right to choose. He had a strong record of demonstrating no respect for privacy, whether it be in terms of reproductive freedom or other issues. And he had voted more than a dozen times to stay the course in Iraq. And I felt that those were the issues that mattered. He was out of sync with Rhode Islanders. And most people are not willing to take on an incumbent in a primary, but I thought it presented a rare opportunity for a pro-women's agenda to not only get attention, but also ultimately get representation in Congress.
So if women are thinking about running for office, what are like 2 or 3 tips you'd give them?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that they need to realize that they're going to evolve and become good candidates. At the beginning, I was terrible. At the beginning, most candidates don't know what they're doing, but that does not mean that very quickly you don't acquire the skills that you need, you don't acquire the contacts that you need, and you don't become the candidate that you always envisioned yourself to be. And so I would tell women, and I do tell women, that when they think that they might not have thick enough skin, or they think that they might not be able to raise the money or weather some of these storms, they will be able to. They might not conceptualize themselves right now as that kind of person because they've never had to do those things. And the second tip that I would give is to really listen to what voters want. Don't change your mind based on the whims of voters, but you learn more from talking to people than you can come up with on your own. And that was something that I also learned on the campaign trail. As long as you get into it for the right reasons, and as long as every single day you believe that there's a chance that you will win, it will be one of the most amazing experiences of your life.
And perhaps, and Tiffany, perhaps you can speak to this too from the work you've done with women who have run and won and run and not won. Sometimes even when you don't win, you win. I mean, we win anyway. There's something that you win. For example, we see Hillary Clinton being Secretary of State right now.
Oh, absolutely. And Jennifer, first of all, thank you very much for stepping out and for declaring your ambition in such a public way. It's so important that we have women doing that. Gloria, what you just said really answers that. It makes an impact when women run, even if they don't win, because they then become models for other women. And they get their name out there. They're actually able to get issues on the table and in the community and voices for those issues that might not have been there before. And they can build and help broaden coalitions for other women. So it's absolutely true. Most women actually don't run or don't win when they run the first time, but it's so important they continue to do that.
Now, here's a question for both of you, because both of you have said something like this in the past. I mean, are women better legislators?
Well, there's a new research that's just come out, the American Journal of Political Science, and it does indicate that women rank the most effective lawmakers in the land. Between 1984 and 2004, women won their home districts an average of, I believe, 49,000 million more per year than their male counterparts. And that finding held regardless of party, geography, committee position, tenure in office, margin of victory, and then a similar performance gap showed up in policy. Women sponsored more bills, an average of 3 more per Congress, co-sponsored more bills, and attracted a greater number of co-sponsors than their male colleagues. So according to the American Journal of Political Science, yes.
Jennifer, what do you think? I mean, what have you seen in terms of the differences between men and women when they do reach political office?
Well, to put my political science hat on for a minute, I think the study is important, and I'm glad that it's been published, but my hunch is that over the course of the next several years, we're going to see many studies that begin to refute those findings. That said, I don't think there's any question that women are at least as successful as men when they throw their hats into the ring, and it may very well be that it's because they're better candidates in the first place because they perceive that they have to be twice as good to get half as far. It's also important to note that whether they run as incumbents or challengers or in general elections, women and men fare just as well as one another at all levels of office, and women are able to raise just as much money as men. So given the fact that women are less likely to think that they're qualified and less likely to be recruited, we might be seeing the best crop of women actually emerge. And that's a good thing because that means that when they're elected, we're really getting the top strata of the talent pool. And we do know that when we're talking about what issues women and men focus on and co-sponsor or sponsor, women are more likely than men to focus on issues that disproportionately exert an impact on women, children, and families. That's not to say that gender is the best predictor of how a legislator votes. Party is. But it is to say that there is a gendered component, and that plays a big role in agenda setting in all legislatures across the country.
That's a very optimistic statement, I think, from both of you. And it gives a sense of why you have the passion for what you do. Tiffany, what brought you to the White House Project in the first place?
Oh, probably my life's work of advancing women and girls. When I was 10 years old, my father was a preacher, and I had a Sunday school teacher who asked for volunteers to lead the prayer in Sunday school. I bowed my head and led the class in prayer, and afterward I was told by the new Sunday school teacher that I shouldn't have done that. It was inappropriate, that a boy was supposed to have led the prayer. And she kindly told me and quoted scripture and verse about where I should be simply because I was a girl, and I was furious. And many women have those kinds of stories about someone putting you in a box or being told what you can or shouldn't do based on culture or creed. And that really was an impetus for me to kind of begin my feminist crusade and to be very committed to advancing women and girls in all communities and sectors.
Wow. Jennifer, what do you think it will take to change the culture that we operate in to be more welcoming to women who want to run for office?
Well, I think it takes a candidate.
Would that be the name of a book? That sounds like it might be the good name of a book.
And the reason I think it takes a candidate is because until women are not an anomaly in politics, it's very difficult to think about how we can bring about change. We know, for example, that family-friendly legislation, flex time, for example, would allow more women to get involved in the political process. We also know that that type of legislation is more likely to pass when there are more women involved in the political process. We know that women would be more likely to be involved if they were recruited. We also know that women who are already involved in politics are the most likely to recruit other women. And if we have more women in politics who are emanating the fact that women are qualified, that would also allow people to think that they too, as women, are qualified. So I don't see how we can bring about substantial change until we get more women to throw their hats into the ring. So for me right now, it's all about recruitment. It is hard to believe that we do not have women ready to run for virtually every single congressional seat. And we need to ensure that the parties have these women on their short lists and are ready to go and are ready to support their candidacies the minute a vacancy is apparent.
Tiffany, what's the White House Project's top tip for a woman considering office?
Oh, leverage your network. Find your resources. There are so many organizations, broader than the White House Project. There are Running Start, there's Emily's List. There's so many organizations that are here to support you, to be a resource for you, so that you can have an ecosystem of support around you to help you and move you forward, particularly when it gets challenging and difficult. But that would be the first, is really leverage your network and develop your ecosystem of support.
Thank you both. You have given so many wonderful pieces of advice and I think inspiration to women who are listening. If you're listening out there, you can find out more about Tiffany Dufu, the new president of the White House Project, and Jennifer Lawless, director of the Women in Politics Institute at American University, by going to my website, gloriafeldt.com. And there you can also visit my blog, Heartfelt and the 9 Ways. Stay with us. We'll be right back.